Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about why I tend to recommend 10s instead of 5s for accessory work, because this has created some controversy when I've made videos about some of this, when I've talked about 10s and stuff. And I think a lot of people are mistaking the idea that they're thinking that I'm telling people to do a bunch of 10 rep sets of squats and deadlifts and things like that. They're like, no, people should be doing 5s. And what people, again, need to understand, I'm not talking about novice lifters, and we're not talking about the main exercises. For novices, for main exercises, I tend to promote 5s. I think it works very, very well. I think 3x5s, I think 5x5s on your big basic movements works very, very well for building a base. And it's because it's in that intermediate rep range, right? Because novice lifters probably shouldn't be hitting really heavy singles. Probably not a good idea for inexperienced lifters to be hitting maxes or to be going above 90% without very, very close supervision. And we could argue that they don't have the muscle mass to really benefit from doing max effort type work. So they need to be doing something higher than 1s, right? They need to. And 5s puts us with just a heavy enough weight that we can still gain strength well from the performance side, the neuromuscular coordination side, handling heavier weights, which is something that we need. Again, to get stronger, you have to handle heavier weights. And we know strength gains come from handling heavier weights. That's one reason low reps make you get stronger on primary exercises, is because they teach you coordination, they teach you how to strain, all of those things. But singles do that better than 3s, 4s, and 5s do. That is not really a point of debate, because again, the same principle applies. The heavier the weights you get used to handling, the better you actualize your actual strength. And the heavier weights, I don't mean handling a heavier weight by doing a half rep. I mean handling a heavier weight by cheating a weight up. I'm talking about moving a heavier weight with correct form. It does make you stronger. But the basis of that strength is your hypertrophy. So let's come over to that point. For the novice lifter, 5s can get us close enough to where we get quality reps and we can do the big exercises. Things like 10s on these big movements, especially for a novice, taxes your work capacity more. Like if you're talking about doing a barbell squat or a deadlift or any big structural exercise for 10 reps, your muscle mass and strength may not be the limiting factor. Right? Your cardiovascular capacity, your work capacity could be a factor. If you're not in shape already, that's not going to go well for you. Right? You could take someone who has a background in sports or an endurance athlete, someone who does a lot of cardio and conditioning work. You can start them on 10s. They could do 10s just fine on squats and stuff like that. Right? They could do all that. Novice lifters aren't in shape, so obviously that direction doesn't work. But 5s give us just enough reps that we can get fairly close to maximum growth from a single set out of it. But I've also had people say, well, 5s taken to failure are just as good as 10s. Well, if you're doing 5 rep sets to failure on big lifts, that's a problem. Like, you are going to get hurt. In fact, you probably shouldn't be taking your really big exercises to failure. But we come over to the point. If we need to get close to failure or we need limit sets in order to stimulate muscle growth because we need quality reps, higher rep sets make a lot of sense. And this is the difference. People need to understand the novice lifter is no longer looking in terms of building their muscle with their primary exercises. All right, the novice lifter does. Squat, bench, deadlift, all that stuff. That's where we build our size. We build size great for the novice lifter on those. Therefore, 5s work perfectly because it strikes the middle ground. It's heavy enough that we get good strength carryover. Not maximum strength, but good strength carryover. But it's light enough that we can do enough reps to get quality volume per set. But when we start talking about going over to slightly more advanced lifters who start having supplemental work and things like that, it's important for us to understand that 5s no longer have the best even hypertrophic potential. because you do get less training volume. And what people need to look at is that you can't get the same training tonnage and quality reps out of 5-rep sets that you can for 10 per set when we start getting close to limit sets like that. When we're getting, also because we're getting with heavier weights, it is easier to get hurt when you fatigue yourself with a 5-rep set that you fail on. Right? Our injury rates go up. It's harder on our joints. When you're strong, a 5x5 squat puts a lot of stress on your joints. When you're strong, 5x5 bench press puts a lot of stress on your joints. Now, I'm not saying stress on the joints is always a bad thing, but it can limit the amount of training volumes that you do. And if we're trying to get bigger, we have to have high volume training. So I'm not talking about the novice. I'm not talking about you guys out there who bench 185 pounds and squat 225. I'm talking about people who've already built their base. They're beyond all of that. So let's come over to the point with this. If we are talking about more advanced lifters, you're probably doing really heavy work already. You're probably already doing maxes, maybe heavy doubles, maybe triples. It's already part of your normal training. All the strength benefits of doing things like 5s, or even doing really high set triples. Let's say we talk about something like the 10 sets of 3. You look at all these studies that we have out there on this stuff, and we go, yeah, that makes sense. You gain more strength with the same amount of hypertrophy. It's only slightly more strength. But that goes out the window when you're doing really heavy work. If you're hitting 1-rep maxes, 2-rep maxes, if you're training above 90% already every week on more than one exercise, you're already maximizing your strength potential. You're not going to get more strength potential because you do a bunch of 3s or 5s or whatever beyond the hypertrophy that they produce. A 5x5 doesn't produce more hypertrophy than a 5x10. It's actually less. It's less quality volume. Again, if they're taken close to failure. It's harder on your joints. So what you find is that when we start looking at, again, data on stuff like that, if we extrapolate the data we have, a 5x5 produces about the same hypertrophy that a 3x10 does. This one's easier on your joints, a 3x10. It's also 2 less sets. So let's say you're taking 2-minute breaks between sets. 3 sets of 10 versus 5x5. Just the rest times alone, the difference. You're shaving 4 or 5 minutes off of that exercise in the gym. You start extrapolating that out over 5 exercises, you're talking about a 30-minute difference in your workout length. Look at your workout density differences here. To do 5s instead of 10s to get the same training volume, you're going to be in the gym another 30 minutes. It's going to be harder on your joints for no benefit at this point. There's no real benefit. If you're using it as your primary training as a novice, yes, it makes sense. It's fine. But if you're trying to maximize hypertrophy, that doesn't work. Now, I will say that strength helps with the hypertrophy. It will help with the loads you can use. You should be doing heavy work. Even if your goal is size, is your primary goal, you still need to be brutally strong. But that's best handled by doing really heavy work. A 5x5 is not heavy. All right, that's medium weights. It's not heavy. It will not peak your strength the same way that heavy singles will. That working anything above 90%, you start hitting 90% and up. All right, that's where you get really strong. And if you're already doing the really heavy work, we need to be looking at how can I do the most training volume for hypertrophy and still recover from it. And we're generally not doing our main lifts for hypertrophy anymore. For the intermediate, and particularly the advanced lifter, we're not using the squat or the deadlift as a primary hypertrophy exercise. I don't even know he's using the flat bench anymore. Might be using a close grip bench, an incline bench, a tricep extension, right? We might use those things. We're not doing a big flat bench. For hypertrophy, we're doing that to build our strength, and we might do a lot of volume on it on lower reps, using those bigger movements for strength. We get thicker in hypertrophy from doing the exercises that are easiest to recover from, that we can do very large training volumes on. All right, look at my case. Where's all my training work? Is this a squat, bench, and deadlift where most of my training volume is? No. And I train them every week. I do all those exercises. I squat, bench, and deadlift multiple times every single week, pretty much. It's not where all my volume is. That's my heavy work. My volume's on the incline bench, the tricep extension, the rows, the good mornings, the glute ham raises, glute bridges, hip thrusts, base pulls, right? That's where all my volume is, because that's what we're using to get big. We use that to maximize our size. Those exercises are easier to recover from. We can do a lot of volume. Do a lot of volume in a very, very short period of time in a workout on those and recover from it. So we can get bigger. So that when we do that heavy work, we have muscle to maximize our strength potential with. When you look at it from this perspective, using things like fives doesn't make a lot of sense anymore. Doesn't make a lot of sense at all. It's not productive use of your gym economy. It's an inefficient use of your resources. 5 sets of 10, you can do a heck of a lot more volume in the same amount of time in a training session. You can get a lot more volume, you can get a lot more hypertrophy out of that. Save the heavy work for when you go really heavy. Just my opinion on it. I'm not saying that this is right or wrong. I'm saying this is the approach that I generally advocate these days for more advanced lifters. Novices can ignore this. You guys need to do your fives. Alright guys, well that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.